What's going on, you guys? Dark Saint here, bringing you guys another video talking to you guys about the Division. In this video we're going to be going over the gear set Sentry's Call. Now, Sentry's Call did take a nerf with update 1.3 along with its brother the Striker set. However, it is still a very viable build and we're going to be going over how to build it in this video. Starting out, we're going to talk about what the Sentry's Call set does. With your first set bonus, this requires you to have 2 pieces of the Sentry's Call equipped. It will give you a 10% increase to headshot damage. This works against enemy AIs and other players. The next set bonus requires 3 pieces of the Sentry's Call equipped, and it will give you an additional 10% damage to elites. Of course, this only affects elite enemies and does not affect other players. And then if you have 4 pieces of the Sentry's Call set equipped, you will gain the talent called Stalker. Headshots will mark an enemy, increasing all damage inflicted on that target by 15% for 10 seconds. A target can be marked up to 3 times. Now, first thing I want to point out is that it does increase all damage. This includes sticky bombs and enemy AIs. So if you're marked by a Sentry's Call and AIs are shooting you in the back, the AIs are also going to be doing an increase to damage towards you. As for the sticky bomb, yes, you can mark an enemy with a pistol or a shotgun of your choosing, and a sticky bomb will do an increase to damage on that player as well. As far as the marking the enemies, it is unique only because it's 15% of previous damage, meaning if you're doing 100 points of damage and you mark them once, it's 115 points of damage. However, your second mark isn't going to go up to 130, it's actually going to be 15% of the 115, which will raise it slightly above 130. And then if you mark them again, it'll be 15% of that said damage. So rather than going to 145, it'll actually go all the way up to around 151 to 152 total extra damage. And then your final set bonus, which requires 5 Sentry's Call equipped, will give you an additional 20% headshot damage and another additional 10% damage to elites, bringing your total headshot damage up to 30% and your total increased damage to elites up to 20%. Now, before I go into talking about how to build the Sentry's Call set, I do want to take a moment to talk about the versatility of the Sentry's Call. The Sentry's Call is very unique because it can be used in both PvP and PvE. It's not restricted on its versatility. It can be used in a variety of different situations. Something else that is unique about the Sentry's Call is it's not restricted to just DPS build. A lot of people will use it for the DPS build and for putting out the damage with their primary weapons. However, because of the uniqueness of the Sentry's Call's talent Stalker that increases all damage, it can also be used as a skill build because it will also increase the amount of damage that the sticky bomb does as well as primary weapons. So this can be used in a variety of different situations. So just keep that in mind whenever you decide on how you want to build your Sentry's Call set. Okay, now we can take a look at how to build the Sentry's Call set. Just like we did with the Striker set, we're going to be taking a look at all the armor pieces and looking at their major and minor attributes and talking about which ones are the best ones to go for if you're looking for the best build. Starting out with the gas mask, of course, just like we always do, we'll take a look at your major attributes. And again, your choices are damage to elites, critical hit chance, health on kill, exotic damage resilience, health, and of course, skill power. Now, as for me, the best one, and always will be the best one, will be skill power. And the reason skill power is so powerful is because it can be used in a variety of different situations. You can use it as a medic or as a vision pulse, and it's just really nice to have some extra skill power so your medic on your team doesn't have to worry so much about healing everyone. It'll also help you out with a lot of your talents that you're using and a lot of your skills that you're using. And it can be used in both PvE and PvP situations. Whereas something like your damage to elites or your health on kill, that is very limited to PvE. Your health on kill only works if you get the kill on an enemy, and the damage to elites only works against AIs. It doesn't work against other players. Other things that you have to consider is something like the critical hit chance on the mask is actually really, really low, so you don't really want to roll for the critical hit chance unless you just have an insane critical hit chance build. But even then, the skill power can actually help your vision pulse, which will then give you a higher critical hit chance whenever you use vision pulse. And that can be used in both PvP and PvE. The only other one that you can consider for both is your exotic damage resilience. But it really isn't that high on this mask alone. You would need a few armor pieces together in order to get that exotic damage resilience. If you're going to do that, you'd probably just simply run the final measure and get the 50% exotic damage resilience that you get from that. Now, as far as the minor attributes on your gas mask, you have your choices between the blind def resistance, Scavenging, increased kill XP, enemy armor damage, burn resistance, and disorient resistance. Now, as far as effects go, the blind deaf and the disorientation, both of those aren't really going to contribute very much to any negative effects that are going to befall your character, such as, death. You really don't have to worry about those two at all. They're not going to really affect your gameplay, as they don't really stop you from using your skills or dodge rolling or anything like that. So you don't really have to worry about those. Those aren't going to be a major contributing factor. So you can go ahead and take those out of the way. Next, of course, is your scavenging, and scavenging is still not where it needs to be at. It does not help you in any way as far as finding better and more awesome loot. It just doesn't do what it needs to be doing. They are supposed to update that in the future to where it's a little bit more viable, but as it is right now, scavenging is not that great. Next is the increased kill XP. Increased kill XP is nice for you guys that are new to the Dark Zone. You are trying to level up and you just got your hands on some high-end or maybe some 191 gear pieces. Running some increased kill XP will help you level up in the Dark Zone, and leveling up faster in the Dark Zone will help you find better gear so that you can buy it or whatever means you need in order to acquire it, and that will help you in gaining and making your character stronger. So the increased kill XP is nice to have. Really, your choices only come down to the enemy armor damage and the burn resistance, and that really depends on which way you're going to want to run with this set. If you're going to go PvE, I recommend the enemy armor damage. However, if you're going to go PvP, then you're going to want to go burn resistance. And the benefit of the Sentry's Call is you can choose whether you want to be a PvE build or a PvP build. So as far as which one you want to choose, both of them are very useful. If it was me, I would go ahead and go with the burn resistance, as I find in the Dark Zone you are in PvP situations quite often, and burn resistance can be used a little bit in PvE. As far as the skill builds, again, the skill builds are something that are up in the air. You don't necessarily need to worry too much about them. However, if you were going to go with the Sentry's Call, I would go along the same lines as a Striker and aim for status effects to stop the enemies from being able to put Hellfire on you, and giving your time to your team and everyone else to really focus fire the enemy and be able to mark the enemy and therefore help out your teammate in that situation. So things like the Seeker Mine or maybe even a healing effects are the skills that you'd be looking for this set. Next, we'll take a look at your chest armor. With the chest armor major attributes, you have 2 major attributes as well as 2 gear mod slots. So starting out with your major attributes, you have your choices between protection from elites, armor, damage to elites, health on kill, exotic damage resilience, and of course health. Now, when it comes to chest armor, and I say this on every chest armor, similar way I say that skill power needs to be on your gas mask, armor needs to be on your chest armor. Chest armor comes with the highest body armor in the game, so you definitely already want that. So you want your chest armor to have strong armor, so you might as well go ahead and put your armor here. That'll eliminate the need from it being in another piece. That, and the chest armor doesn't really have a lot of choices for what you can attach to it, so go ahead and throw that armor on there. It will help you out immensely. As for your second major attribute, you have your choices between protection from elites, damage to elites, health on kill, exotic damage resilience, and of course health. Now, health is not a very good choice. It's just not a high amount of toughness. It doesn't help you that much. It's not going to keep you alive any differently than just having a stamina gear mod attached, so you don't have to worry about that. As for health on kill, that is restricting yourself to PvE again, as it doesn't work very effectively in PvP. And then you have your damage to elites and protection from elites. Again, that's in PvE. Now, if you're going tank, of course you can go exotic damage resilience. As for me and my choices, they would be between the damage to elites or the health on kill, as the Sentry's Call is a lead assault, and if I was going to go in PvE, which the Sentry's Call can do, those are the two I would be looking at. Either getting health back so I don't have to worry so much on my skills, or increasing the amount of damage I do to elites. Another good option, of course, is your protection from elites, as that will help you keep yourself alive. So there's not really too much of a bad choice on the chest armor. You do want to just avoid the health. The exotic damage resilience is always nice to have, as it's not negative in any way. It's not going to hurt you in any way. So the only one you really want to avoid on a chest armor, and that's really what it comes down to, is going to be the increase to health, as it's just not significant, and you can just get it from a stamina gear mod. So I wouldn't worry too much about the health. I would just mainly look at your choices for your second attribute. You already know your first one's going to be armor. Your second one is dependent upon where you're really going to focus your build towards. For me, it's going to go down to either damage to elites or health on kill. That's my opinion, just simply because I kind of like health on kill, being able to build it with a bunch of health on kill and being able to eliminate an enemy and get a portion of my health back without having to rely on my skills. I can rely more on my skill as a player keeping me alive. The only negative aspect of the health on kill is that if another player on my team kills that said enemy, I will not get that health back, and that does hurt me a little bit. But most of the time as elite assault, I will be getting the kill, or I'll be sharing this kill with my other elite assault, and he will probably have a health on kill build as well. So in that aspect, we're going to help each other out. As far as your minor attributes go on the chest armor, you only have two choices, and that is increased ammo capacity or increased kill XP. And like I said before, if you are new to the Dark Zone and you're trying to level up a little bit faster so that you can buy some better gears from some vendors, then you can go with the increased kill XP, as it will help you level up faster in the Dark Zone, giving you better opportunity to buy better gear from vendors. If you are in game already, then obviously you're going to go with the increased ammo capacity. As for your backpack, we're going to take a look at your major attributes, and those choices are skill haste, armor, critical hit damage, skill power, or signature ability resource gain. Now, signature ability resource gain isn't bad, it's just not on very many armor pieces, and it's really not something that's easily able to be stacked even with gear mods. So it's really not something that's very useful. As for the armor, I highly encourage armor to anyone with a gear score below 200. If you're around the 191 or below, you'll find that you might need this extra armor in order to reach the 75% armor mitigation cap. However, once you're above gear score 200, you're not really going to need that, as you'll be able to hit your maximum armor mitigation cap of 75% with just the chest piece, the knee pads, and the holster, and anything else you could probably just get from a gear mod. So it really comes down to just either skill power or critical hit damage, depending on your build. Now, the Sentry's Call does have a lot of damage, and increasing the critical hit damage can help you out in a few different situations. However, I would personally still go with the increase to skill power, as that will help you out in more situations. Not that critical hit damage is bad, it's just that skill power will help you out in a variety of different situations. You'll be able to heal yourself better, you'll be able to use your vision pulse better, and the vision pulse will thus increase the amount of critical hit chance and critical hit damage that you do. So you could do it that way. However, if you are on a team and you have somebody with high skill power, you may want to go with critical hit damage, as their skill power will make their vision pulse stronger, giving you a higher critical chance, and this critical hit damage will make it to where you're doing more damage as a lead assault. So it really depends on your playstyle. But for me, I would still go with skill power, as it can be used in a variety of different situations, whether I'm in a team, solo, or PvE or PvP. It could be used in any situation, and that's why I prefer skill power. Next, we'll take a look at the minor attributes of the backpack. You have your choices between disrupt resistance, ammo capacity, bleed resistance, and burn resistance, and all four of these are not a bad choice to have, so you really don't have to worry too much about your minor attribute slot. That being said, the disrupt resistance is more viable of a PvP choice, as you're not going to find very many AIs, if ever, that actually cause you to be disrupted, that causes a negative effect on you that you can't get out of. The disrupt resistance stops you from being able to use skills, and that is an annoyance. However, you're really only going to see this in PvP, and really only whenever people are using the flashbang sticky bomb that causes the disrupt effect, and that's pretty easy to shake off. Then you have the bleed resistance, which again is more something you're going to see in PvP being a issue than PvE. Now, of course, in PvE you will still encounter the bleed resistance, and this does stop you from being able to run. However, you are still able to dodge roll and get to cover, and you can normally heal your way out of it. So again, that's something that can be shrugged off in PvE. Now in PvP, you're going to run into this more often with Predator's Mark being out there, as well as the sticky bomb causing the bleeding effect whenever it detonates. So the bleeding effect can be somewhat of an annoyance. However, it only stops your movement. It does not prevent you from using skills, and it does not prevent you from being able to dodge roll and just try and get out of the fight. The one that does cause some issues is the burn resistance. Now, of course, you will find more flamethrowers using this with you know, the cleaners and things like that. Of course, you will also see this in PvP with people using incendiary rounds, and the burning effect can be very annoying, as once you're on fire, you're not able to run, you're not able to use skills, you're not able to shoot back, so you're very limited whenever you're on fire. Of course, the fire does wear out rather quickly. You don't really have to stick around with it, but it can be an annoyance if somebody's shooting you with incense rounds and you're not able to shake it off by going into a health cloud that somebody else laid down for you, hopefully. However, if your entire team's on fire, nobody's going to be able to use health. So the best of the worst of these would probably be the burn resistance, just because that's the one that causes the most negative status effects, and it's something you're going to see in both PvE and PvP. However, having more ammo is not a bad thing either. Most people will use a dummy backpack to just increase the amount of ammo they have and then swap back to something that has burn resistance on. However, because the dummy pack is about to be patched, I wouldn't recommend doing that anymore. I would try and break away from that. Moving on, now we're going to take a look at the gloves. Now, with the gloves, and I'll say this on pretty much all builds, except for just a few, which we'll go over in later videos, my build for gloves is the critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and health on kill. Now, of course, there is a increased damage to elites that's kind of helpful in PvE, but I find that the health on kill seems to be a little bit more useful, especially considering I can combo it with a couple of my other armor pieces or even a weapon in order to get myself a little bit more health back. And that's also a lot more viable as a lead assault, being able to get health back without having to rely on skills. That being said, if you're going to take a look at your gloves, you have your choice between critical hit chance, damage to elites, critical hit damage, shotgun damage, assault rifle damage, LMG damage, marksman rifle damage, pistol damage, SMG damage, health, and health on kill, like I said before. Next thing we'll take a look at is the holster, and the holster for me is pretty easy. Your major attribute choices are armor, protection from elites, skill haste, and pistol damage. You do not have a minor attribute, so as far as the major attribute choices, I would easily pick armor, as it will combo very, very well with the chest armor, making it that much closer to maximum armor mitigation. The protection from elites only works in PvE, whereas armor works in both PvE and PvP, so that's another reason I would choose that. Next, we'll take a look at your knee pads. As far as your major attributes on the knee pads, you have your choices between exotic damage resilience, armor, damage to elites, protection from elites, and health. Now, normally I would just say run armor here and therefore give yourself an increase to armor with your chest piece, your holster, and your knee pads, getting you that much closer to maximum armor mitigation of 75%. However, for you in-game players, especially those running the 240 to 268 armor pieces, you'll find that this armor only is around 300 to 380 armor, which you could probably get that from just a couple of gear mods. You probably don't even need all 380 armor points in order to get maximum armor mitigation. So if you wanted to sacrifice a couple of gear mods, you could probably get the armor on the gear mods that would get you to 75% armor mitigation, therefore freeing up this slot. If you were to do that, then my second choice would be the critical hit damage. However, that's not the way that I would build. I would go ahead and leave the armor on the knee pads and put something like skill power on my gear mods, as the skill power will help me out in a variety of different situations, especially now that I'm already at maximum armor mitigation and I no longer have to worry about that. You could also put something like critical hit chance or something like that on the gear mods if you chose to do that. It just frees up your gear mods. But that's your choice. Next, we'll take a look at the minor attributes on the knee pads. For the knee pads, you have 3 minor attribute slots, and your choices are the disrupt resistance, scavenging, enemy armor damage, increased kill XP, bleed resistance, burn resistance, shock resistance, blind deaf resistance, or disorient resistance. Again, the blind deaf resistance and the disorient resistance are more of an annoyance than they are of anything, so your choices come down to disrupt resistance, bleed resistance, burn resistance, and shock resistance, as the enemy armor damage is strictly PvE, and the increased kill XP is something for you low-level players that are trying to level up in the Dark Zone. So I would go with the burn resistance, the bleed resistance, and the shock resistance, as that will help me out in PvP if I was going to run it that way. If I wasn't, then I would go ahead and take off the bleed resistance and run with something like the increased armor damage. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the diversity that the Sentry's call set gives you. And then what I mean by that is the Sentry's Call can be used in just about any situation. If you want to be a sniper, you can run the Sentry's Call and snipe enemies in the back. If you want to be a lead assault, you can be a lead assault and run with a shotgun in the front and still be able to mark enemies. If you want to be a skill build, you can use a skill build Sentry's Call to dish out a large amount of damage because the Sentry's Call marking increases all damage inflicted on the enemy that is marked. So you could, say for example, run a pistol, mark them 3 times with the pistol, and then hit them with the sticky bomb, and still do a large portion of damage. So you can use it in a variety of different situations. You're not limited to how you use it. And not only that, you can also use it in both PvE and PvP. Whereas something like the Striker set, which excels in PvE, it does not do very well in PvP, whereas the Sentry's Call does well in both. And not only that, you can still mark enemies. Even though you don't do a large amount of damage, you can still play a supportive role and mark the enemies for your teammates to do the damage and allow your teammates to play that way. So the Sentry's Call is just such a great ability because you can use it in so many different situations. And that's what really makes the Sentry's Call so much better than some of the other ones. Now, is it the best of any kind? No. In my opinion, the Striker set's the best PvE build that you can have as a lead assault. Because the Striker set, once it's built, you can continuously do the damage. So you go up on a big enemy, you build the Striker set to 100% increase to damage, and then you can use that 100% increase to damage against the other enemies around you. And every enemy you hit, you're going to be doing that 100% increase to damage. Whereas the Sentry's Call, once you mark the enemy, the next enemy that comes in front of you, you have to mark him. And then the next enemy in front of you, you have to mark him. However, the downside is if you go down, then the Striker set's gone. You have lost the Striker bonus. Whereas the Sentry's Call, you can mark the enemy, and then all your allies do the damage, not just you. So there's both ways on that. On the counter side, as far as PvP, yes, the Sentry's Call is useful in PvP, but I wouldn't say that it's the best. In my opinion, the best PvP lead assault build is probably going to be the Predator's Mark, and we'll go over that in my next video whenever I talk about the Predator's Mark and the benefits of running that over the Sentry's Call. So I don't want to give too much away yet, and I'll give my reasons for why I think that in the next video. So don't hate me yet, don't jump to conclusions, don't say, oh, Sentry's Call is way better. I know everyone has their own opinions, and I'll tell you mine in the next video. Anyway, talking about the Sentry's Call, like I said before, the Sentry's Call can be used in a variety of different situations, not just PvP, but also PvE, not just lead assault with primary weapons, but also a good skill build and also a good sniper in the back. It's just such a good build for a variety of different situations, and anyone can use it. And you can combo it with a few different gear sets that we'll go over in just a minute, whereas other gear sets just don't combo so well together. Sentry's Call is just a very, very amazing ability to be able to roll more than just one way. It lets you be versatile, and that's something that I really enjoy about the Sentry's Call. Now, as far as the weapons that you're going to want to run, like I said before, if you're a sniper in the back, then I would probably run with a sniper, of course, and then combo that with something like an SMG or an assault rifle so that you can dish out the damage very, very quickly. Now, if I was going to go lead assault, then I would probably go with either an SMG or an assault rifle comboed with a shotgun. The shotgun to mark the enemies and stagger the enemies, and run it with a seeker mine with gas charge to stun the enemies, giving yourself the time to mark them and then get back to cover. You could also just do some snap shooting. If you don't know what snap shooting is, that's whenever you hide behind a cover and quickly aim and fire, and because a snapshot will help lock on to the enemy. It takes a little bit of practice, but after you get used to it, you can very quickly pop out and snap a few shots with your shotgun to mark the enemy, and that'll allow your snipers or your other players or your other lead assault to dish out that much more damage, and that is something that is always benefiting to the team. So my opinion as far as weapons would be something like a shotgun and an assault rifle, or a shotgun and an SMG for a lead assault. The next thing we'll take a look at is the armor pieces that combo very, very well with the Sentry's Call. Of course, you have the 4-piece Sentry's Call, 2-piece Final Measure. Now, if you're running Final Measure, odds are you've lost a little bit of DPS in comparison to some of the other builds that you can do with the Sentry's Call, but that's okay because now you're going to be able to be a little bit more effective in PvP. You'll be able to survive those sticky bombs as a lead assault and still give the benefit of being able to mark an enemy, and therefore not only you do more damage, but your allies do more damage as well. So it's a very good combination with the Final Measure. Now if you're running a 4-piece with 2 Tactician's Authority, no, you're not going to have the exotic damage resilience, but the increased skill power can help you out with your vision pulse and with your healing. Of course, I would recommend this more for a PvE situation than a PvP, but an increase to skill power will help out in both situations, especially if you ran some skill power on your backpack and on your gas mask. Now you have a pretty good amount of skill power to use a variety of different skills. Next, of course, if you are running any Elite Assault, and I said the same thing with the Striker set, you could run a 5-piece Sentry's Call to get the most out of Sentry's Call and combo it with a Vigorous Chest Armor. And this helps out if you have 2 Elite Assaults comboed together, being able to heal each other and at the same time give each other added benefits such as booster shot or being able to revive each other. Giving each other that bonus as 2 Elite Assaults would do is really, really nice to be able to combo with a 5-piece Sentry's Call with 1-piece Vigorous Chest Armor. Same can be said with the 5-piece Sentry's Call with Savage Gloves. However, like I said before, if you are trying to use this for PvP purposes, you are going to be at a disadvantage versus something like the Sticky Bomb, as you're not going to have any kind of exotic damage resilience. It does give you a large amount of increased damage, which can make you a little bit of a glass cannon, but you are going to lose out on a little bit of your exotic damage resilience. As for the talents that you're going to be wanting to run, this is the same thing as I said with the Striker gear set. You're going to want to run some critical save. Using a medkit while at low health increases damage resistance by 40% for 10 seconds. This is pretty useful in both PvE and PvP, and very useful if you are running solo, as you'll be able to heal yourself and get a little bit of armor buff that might save you long enough to get to some cover. Next, of course, is the precision headshots on a hostile. Will pulse them for 10 seconds. The pulse does give you a little bit higher critical chance, critical hit damage and stuff like that. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. And it works pretty well with the Sentry's Call. As with the Sentry's Call, you obviously have to hit them in the head in order to mark them anyway. So you combo that with the shotgun or something like that, and it will help you out. However, if you're running with the team and you already have vision pulse on, you're probably not going to need this at all. Then the next one, of course, is On the Move. The On the Move helps you whenever you kill an enemy. You get an increase of 30% armor, which will help you in both PvE and PvP, like I said before. And this can help you, again, with moving around and being a good lead assault and being able to stun the enemies and play your role of lead assault and get on the front line without having to worry about dying so much. However, this does require you to be out of cover, so you definitely want to make sure the enemies are stunned before you try and go on the move. And of course, the last talent, and this pretty popular talent with any shotgun use-based gear set, which the Sentry's Call is very viable with the shotgun, and that is the talent One is None. The talent One is None in combination with the shotgun basically gives you infinite ammo as long as you're landing headshots. It's not necessarily infinite ammo, as you are going to miss on occasion, but it is quite a big increase in the amount of damage that you can put out with a shotgun, and that's always makes it a little bit more viable. There are still some issues with One is None, but it's up in the air whether or not you want to take the risk over the reward. Next, of course, if you're running with a team, you're definitely going to want to run that triage. You could run the triage in place of the pulse, the tactical pulse that you have, where you hit an enemy in the head and you pulse them. You could definitely give that up in order to run your triage, and that will help you out quite significantly, as being able to run triage will help all your allies get your skills back really, really quickly if you're running a healing talent, which pretty much everyone does. And the next one, of course, is Battle Buddy. If you chose to give up your critical save in exchange for Battle Buddy, to where whenever you revive an ally, you get a 50% increase to armor. This works very, very well in PvE, as you and your lead assault will be working together side by side, and being able to pick each other up and getting that extra armor can be very useful, especially if you combo that with On the Move. Mind you, On the Move doesn't work that long. However, these two in combination can definitely save you and your buddy as lead assaults. As for the other talents you might want to consider, if you chose to run a shock turret, which is very viable with this set, a shock turret can combo very, very well with the fear tactics, and you could replace that for the pulse. If you're running solo as well, you could definitely combo that with a fear tactics and a shock turret in order to tase a lot of enemies. And you only need a couple of seconds to mark the enemies with the Sentry's Call, so something like the shock turret is very useful for the Sentry's Call, because you only need that spare second in order to mark the enemies and do the damage you need to do. The next one, of course, is your booster shot. If you're using the chest armor that gives you the overdose already, you definitely don't need overdose, and you can combo that with the booster shot or even the revive ability of the first aid, and that's very useful for your lead assault roles as well in combination with each other. But you can also use this in PvP, not only to give you an increased damage of your weapon, but also give an increased damage again with the sticky bomb if you chose to run that. Next, of course, is your Secret Mine with Gas Charge. I recommend this for any lead assault, and in some situations, some of the supportive roles can run this as well. The Gas Charge is just so effective. It is still very popular, even with the recent nerf that came with it. It's still very, very strong, and I encourage anyone that has ever not used this, please do. Just try it out, at least for a little while. I promise you'll enjoy it if you can master it and really figure out how to use it. Again, like I said before, the shock turret, the zapper, is a very, very popular one with the Sentry's Call because you only need that second to mark them. And then, of course, you have Vision Pulse. If you chose to run a high amount of skill power, the Tactical Scan can give you that much more damage, which is always beneficial to a Sentry's Call build or a lead assault build in general. And then the last one we're going to take a look at, of course, is the Flashbang. Flashbang is very popular with most lead assaults. I personally prefer Secret Mine with Gas Charge, but the Flashbang can get the job done if you know how to use it effectively. Now, to close out this video, I just want to give a few pointers and a few tips and a good few strategies on using the Sentry's Call, not only solo, but as a team. Now, if you're running lead assault with the Sentry's Call, just like with the Striker gear set, I do encourage running the Secret Mine with Gas Charge, as the Secret Mine will be able to stun the enemies, giving you the time you need to not only mark them, but also dish out a pretty good amount of damage to the enemy that is stunned by the Secret Mine with Gas Charge. So comboing the Secret Mine with Gas Charge is always a very useful thing to do with any lead assault, and the Sentry's Call is no exception to that. It's not so effective in PvP, so I definitely wouldn't consider that for a PvP. That is more of a PvE build. And like other lead assaults, it's always very nice to have somebody that is a skill build that can give you the vision pulse that you need. A good pulse with Tactical Scanner can increase the amount of damage that you do, and that will help you out tremendously, especially considering the Sentry's Call will already give you an increase to damage. So a Tactical Scanner giving you that much more is always beneficial in both PvE and PvP. So you definitely want to have a good skill builder with a vision pulse on your team to get the best out of your Sentry's Call. As for the Sentry's Call user himself, I would definitely recommend the shock turret, as really whenever it comes to shocking an enemy and giving yourself just a couple of seconds to mark them, that's all you need to mark them all 3 times is just a couple of seconds. Now, if you're playing the Sentry's Call on the back, I'd recommend a M1A so you can mark the enemies very, very quickly, and that'll help your allies do that much more damage that are on the front line if you yourself are not. Either way, you guys, that'll wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys found it enjoyable. Hope it helps you guys out with running the Sentry's Call. Next time, we're going to be going over the Predator's Mark and how to build that. And I really wanted to get these guys out for you lead assault users. Either way, that'll wrap it up for this video, and I will catch you guys next time in the next video.